I often hear of the benefits of frequent confession. How often should I go to confession to obtain these benefits? Well, you're right. There are great benefits for frequent confession. Pope Pius XII wrote a whole document explaining these benefits. Because confession is not only for the remission of mortal sins. It's obviously for that, but it's also for the remission of any sin, including venial sins. And it obtains pardon for the sin, but also at the same time, it obtains grace for us to not commit the same sin again. Because confession is a sacrament, so it gives grace to those who receive it with the right dispositions. So when you go to confession and you confess these venial sins, you'll be stronger in fighting against the temptations that lead you to commit these sins. So as to the frequency of confession, a sort of minimum frequency would be once a month. It's interesting that Our Lady at Fatima, in the conditions that she laid down to receive the famous promise that she made for those who do the 5 Saturdays, one of the things that she asked us to do each Saturday, the first Saturday for 5 months, was to go to confession once a month, the first Saturday of every month. So that could be a rule, I think, that anyone could follow. We shouldn't leave it longer than that. And it can even be more frequent, every 2 weeks or even every week. Religious in the church, for example, in canon law, it tells them to go to confession every week. And you might say, well, what do you mean religious? They live in these monasteries, they don't ever commit any sins. But, well, no, they do. They commit venial sins. And it's precisely in order to fight against those venial sins that they go to confession so frequently. So don't hesitate to do that. And don't feel that you always have to find, new things to say before you go to confession. If you have nothing particular to say since your last confession, you can always confess sins that you've already confessed. That's valid matter in confession, because you renew your contrition for it and you receive grace again to fight against that particular sin. And you'll see in practice, the more often you go to confession, the more light comes into your soul to see your sins. If you hardly ever go to confession, you go to confession once a year. Priests can tell you this. People who go to confession once a year, they can't think of anything to say. Because they don't have that light to see their sins, their venial sins. So that's what I would suggest you to go at least once a month, and even more often if you can, and if you find it helps you.